maybe great place to start, I think, would be just right at the beginning. When you kind of how we connected, when you had reached out on Facebook on the Rosemont Neighbors Facebook group. I've told that story several times because it's just kind of a unique one. What were you
Hmm.
looking for in an agent at that time when you started to kind of put out feelers for your move to Rosemount?
Yeah, well, I was specifically looking for someone that really knew the city, really
Yep.
knew Rosemount. And so that was number one. And then we did, I pulled, I think three or four people that I set up interviews with, and you seemed to be the only one that really knew Rosemount, really listened to what it is we wanted instead of just like, I mean, we talked to one guy and he just talked straight for 30 minutes. And I'm like, he really seemed to only know like Bloomington. And then I talked to one lady that really only seemed to know like Edina, and one guy who's just like, okay, so, are we going to sign a contract? And I'm like, we didn't say that, and so you seem like the one that was like the most experienced, but also like knew what we were looking for, the most professional. You set up like a Zoom call, you gave us notes afterwards. So that's really what I think we were looking for.
I saw your message. To me, you all seemed like really I mean, you're the type of clients that I want to work with. Your
Mm,
situation, and we kind of talked through this on our initial Zoom call, very similar to when my family moved. You're coming from Egan to Rosemount. We were coming from St. Paul to Rosemount, and just the need for better schooling and just better neighborhoods and so forth.
mm,
There was a lot of similarities there. And I think it was just
right.
the conversation was very easy and natural, in my opinion. And I'm glad
Hmm.
that you
Hmm.
all, saw that as well. Well, and then so the home in Egan, let's kind of talk about that quick. So
Sure.
want to get into an understanding or kind of go back and walk through that the pricing conversation that we had. Ultimately
Hmm.
it sold at 327.6. When our initial in-person meeting, I kind of walked you through the pricing process, and we walked about the
Hmm.
comps. What was kind of your just general takeaway from that conversation? Did you have any thoughts to share on that, or kind of just looking back, um,
Yeah.
what did that pricing conversation look like in your eyes?
Yeah, I think it was helpful because I think one, you were a lot more positive than I was. See, now she's whining again. Because I think that Jim and I, both of us, and we keep hearing, well, you guys took really good care of the place. And I'm like, we did? Because, like, to us, like, the bathroom was like very outdated. The kitchen was very outdated. And so, like, in our view, we didn't take great care of the place. And which is part of the reason why, you know, I think that that really reflects the reason why we wanted to move, right? Because we're like, oh, I hate this place. Like it's driving me nuts. And so then when people compliment it, we're like, why? We hate it here, you know?
The beauty of it, though, is so. I mean, yeah, to your point, you mentioned I was a little more positive. I For me, I always try to, from my perspective, just detach any emotion
Right,
from
right.
as much as one can. Like you can, I'm not a robot, but to look
Sure,
at
sure.
just things factually and just say, okay, we looked at some of the other properties that had sold recently. We looked at, I think there was one other property that was on the market currently. We understood, and for me, you brought up well maintained and so forth, and you were kind of disputing that. See, to me, I think the home was, and I say this with all due respect, was dated. Don't get me wrong,
Yes,
and I would guess you would
yes.
agree on that. I mean, there hadn't been, a bunch of modernized, the kitchen and so forth, but it wasn't breaking down. Nothing was
No,
worn or broken down or anything like that.
no.
And I think that does go a long way. And I think really, that's why we ultimately, that's why we priced it the way we did. And I think that was really, I stand behind that pricing strategy. I think really we ended up getting a buyer who, I don't know if you caught this in the conversation, but she's an interior designer.
Oh, no,
And
I
so
didn't
she's
see
got
that.
she's got plans, she's got plans of what they're going to do and so
Um,
forth. And I think it's really just it is context. I think for you guys,
yeah,
that's not your I'm not an interior designer, and that's maybe not
no,
what you guys want to emphasize and put your time into, which
right,
is why I think it makes sense that you guys, that we're going down the path of looking at a new build because I think that really
right.
meets your needs. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we ended up 327.6, which obviously with the covering some of the closing costs, we were at 315 and I think yeah, all things considered, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. This was a team effort with you guys, but I think we really got that dialed in and just really kind of looked at things very honestly. I think everybody here was kind of very
Mhm.
self-aware of what the situation looked like.
That was part of the reason why we hired you too, because like you're very professional, you work well with people. I was talking to my best friend is actually selling her house in Mankato, and they found a house that they really like in North Mankato, and but um her realtor like lives in Barabo, and so like there was some like trouble like getting together, and so my friend Whitney and her husband just talked to the seller's agent, was like, we'll go over there. And then this guy's been like super unprofessional, rude. Like they put in an offer, which was a little bit of a low ball, but the house had been sitting for like 11 months. If I were
Yeah.
those sellers, I'd be like, we'll freaking take it. We'll take whatever because I just want it off my plate. Like I don't want to go into another winter trying to sell this joint.
And that's tough. And that's, I mean, it's without knowing the sellers personally, it's hard to understand their motivations. But,
Hmm.
I think to not, as an agent to not present offer, I mean, that's my job is to anything that comes
Right.
our way, that's got to be
Right.
communicated, that's got to be discussed with
Yeah.
you all in a timely manner. Even
Right.
if I
I think
personally
it's,
think it's not worth our
yeah.
time, that's not my judgment. That's not my place to call it. That's ultimately,
Right.
my client's call. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's wild.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, geez, I'm like, I told her, I'm like, you need to not even talk to this guy anymore. Because he was also trying to push them to use his own like contact, like a lender. And Whitney was like, no, like we have our own lender that we like that we've been going through like with our current house and who we refinanced with. And so they're like, we're gonna stick with our own person. And the seller's realtor was like, no, he can get you like, because they were looking at like, someone around the 6%, which is what we're
Mm,
looking at, average
yep.
right now. And this guy's like, no, we can get you in the force. And Whitney's like, how is that like even possible? Like nobody's getting that right now.
Right.
And so even though they're like in a good like financial spot, they have like a bunch of savings. They're better than us. They don't
Huh.
have kids. I
I
learned on
mean,
that.
I don't know about that.
And so, but yeah, I it's strange. I would be pissed if my house was sitting for 11 months. I'd be like, we're getting a new realtor because obviously like this guy cannot sell it.
Well, and that's kind of why, I had the conversation with you guys when we were at the kitchen table. This is obviously the same meeting where we talked about and kind of walked through the pricing strategy.
Hmm.
Um, I was very upfront. I said, hey, listen, even if we collectively believe that where we list the house is rock solid, like it's absolutely,
Hmm.
given the comparables, given the market trends, given all the data that
Hmm.
we can kind of input into this, there's still a possibility that it doesn't sell, over the weekend, that
Right,
we're on the market. Now, 11 months, that's absurd. But
right.
that's why I said, I've got, and again, I did not create this. This was something that I have learned over time, but the
Yeah,
10-10-10 or 10-10-0 rule. If we're on the market for 10 days and we have no showings, we talk about price reduction. If we're on the market for 10 days, maybe we have 10 showings, no offers. Again, we talk about a price reduction. And so just
right,
for me, that's always been my position. You know, it's not a it's not the most fun thing to talk about with clients. Like, hey, listen, we might not be able to get, you know, absolute, complete, like top dollar that we think we can.
Right.
But it's still, I would rather have that conversation before anybody signs any paperwork, before anybody, before we really take any meaningful steps to list your home, because I feel
Hmm.
like it's my duty to be as transparent as possible and to have you
Right.
understand that this could happen. It probably won't. I feel confident in this. You
Right.
all, we walk through the logic, but like I said, we're dealing with human beings who, are unpredictable. This is
Right.
a major, major purchase for somebody.
Hmm.
Things can still happen. And so, yeah, that's
Right.
just, I mean, obviously I don't work in Mankato. That's way out of my wheelhouse, but yeah, it's a shame if they happen to need somebody down there. I'm certainly happy to do some outreach and make some connections with some good Keller Williams folks down there. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's the agent sounds a bit self-serving and really not doing the best for the clients, but yeah,
That's what I
hopefully
think too. But
hopefully things turn around. So I promise this is going to be short, so I don't want to take up too much of your
no,
time.
you're okay.
Two more questions, and this one might be kind of this one might be kind of difficult to answer, but what was the your favorite part of the experience? And when we look at this, so there's obviously the sales side, which we've completed. We're
Hmm.
still in the middle of the buy side. So I mean, taking both of those things into consideration, what, I know it's been a little bit stressful, but what was maybe a bright spot so far?
I think the bright spots on the buying side, we're very excited to have a new build. It was really
Yeah,
fun for me to like pick out all my stuff, even though there's not like a ton of choices. It was fun to be like, I've been telling people, I'm like, I love my new countertops and like there's so much space and like it's
yeah.
just perfect. And so it was definitely the most fun, even though it's very expensive. I keep telling people, I'm like, I'm going to be house poor for a couple of years here. Bring
I
me some
mean,
ramen, some peanut butter sandwiches.
but you'll be eating them on gorgeous countertops.
Exactly, exactly.
Hey, no,
Like
I mean,
we will have
I
our
totally get
perfect
it.
home.
I totally get it. I
Yeah.
get that, and it's I kind of figured that would be where you'd go with that question. And I listen, I don't blame you. I mean, again, there's the you've got some choice over what your home looks like.
Yeah.
And listen, it's fresh, it's new, it's not, nobody else
Yes.
has lived in it.
Right.
I mean, there's a definite upside to that. So that's cool.
Hmm.
And just having checked in with Stephanie and with Lennar recently, it sounds like everything's on track. So I
Yeah,
mean,
it does. So
which
I'm very
is
excited
good.
about that. All right.
One last question to wrap it up,
Okay.
if that's all right.
Yep.
Kind of the question that, maybe ties everything together. Would you recommend other people work with me when buying and selling real estate in the
Oh,
future?
oh yeah, definitely. In fact, okay. So I work at Bath and Body Works part-time.
Okay.
Oh, Della quit. Just like for fun. Della, geez, I pet you one time and you go psycho on me. Such an attention hog. Um, but I've been telling a couple girls, I'm like, they're like, because they're young, they're in like their early 20s, and they're like, no, I really want to buy a house. And I'm like, check out first-time home buyers. And so if you're interested in helping very young people buy their first houses, you're not going to get a lot of money out of them, but
No. Okay, so to answer your question, I would love to talk to them. So if you are willing to make a connection,
yeah,
I'm
totally.
more than happy to set up time.
Yeah.
I think for me, whether it's, folks in the early 20s or, closer to my age, put it that way,
Hmm.
a lot of people will just sort of assume based on what they see on the news, based on what maybe conversations they have with their friends, that
Yeah.
I can't afford to buy. And and
Right.
and maybe that's true. I'm not suggesting that affordability hasn't gone down, and
Right.
there's challenges out there in terms of just financing and so forth. But
Yeah.
what I would one of the
Quick.
things that I would
Stop.
focus on if I were to speak to your coworkers is I would just say, listen, let's get you connected with a lender. And listen, I have lenders that I trust and work with, but I would never if they, you know, if their parents say, hey, you know, we've got, you know, we've been working with this lender for 20 years, great, let's go talk to that way.
Right. And that's the
But
thing too, is they're both of them come from low income backgrounds. And so their parents, one of them, their parents just bought a house for like the very first time
sure,
and they're in like their 40s. And the other one grew up in a trailer. And so like these are not like I think it seems like kind of like impossible for them. And
sure,
so I was saying, well, them, I was like, you can always just meet with my realtor and he can just like walk you through the options and you don't have to sign with him. Like he would just meet with you probably for free and just tell
yes,
you like, like dispel some myths because I think when you grow, I mean, because I do a lot of work just in my professional life, I do a lot of work with low income people. And I think that, if you grew up in the mindset that this is too impossible,
yep,
you're not going to pursue it yourself because no one else in your family has ever done it, right? It's that
yep,
kind of thing of like, well, I'm not going to go to college because nobody else in my family went to college, right?
right.
And so I think like I'll definitely give them your name and just encourage them to reach out because I mean they're very hardworking girls, but yeah, it's you don't always see that that's possible. Quit.
Right, right. And listen, we may come to the conclusion that it's not an opportunity right now, but
Yeah.
I think it would give them enough information to where they, if they truly wanted to own a home, that
Right.
I would give them, and again, my lender partners would give them enough information to build
Yeah.
towards that, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
then that way, then they had a plan, and rather than just again assuming because that's kind of the messaging that's kind of just been, you know, beat into them for date from day one. Like,
Yeah.
well, no, I'm coming now from an educated position. You know, I understand a little bit better what goes into this. You know, maybe it is an option today. I mean, and again, it's not everybody.
We don't know.
Well,
Ouch. Hold on.
and I
Hold
would
on.
say too, this idea that, you know, oh, there's no such thing as a starter home anymore. Listen, I'm holding an open house on Sunday in Rosemount.
Huh.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
townhome. It's two, I mean, listen, it's smaller.
Right.
It's two bedroom, one bath. But I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of what a starter home's supposed to be.
Right. Exactly.
And it's
I
very
said to one of them,
affordable.
yeah, I said to one of them, I'm like, a townhome would be like perfect for you. I'm also trying to get this girl to dump her loser boyfriend, but I was
I can't help with that.
no, you can assist with that. Maybe I can, but I was like, you should just get like a little townhouse and then, you own your own place. And she's actually the one that told us about this apartment complex. And
Okay.
so she's like, I just feel like, I'm throwing my money away on rent. And I'm like, yeah, you should buy. I mean, there's a reason why we were able to buy this next house because actually saw something on this about Reddit. And somebody was like, how are people buying, $500,000 homes? And they bought 10 years ago. We bought ours with first time home buyers. There was
Right.
no way we could, there's no way I could come up with 20% for our current house,
No.
our new build unless we are at a house. And so that's really the trick is you get into a house when you're in your 20s.
Yep.
Just something
Yep.
cheap, just a basic house, and then over time you're able to like keep moving, keep growing your wealth.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. Well, I think that's probably a good place to stop. Listen, you know, we're on track with Lennar. You know, you guys are still
Hmm.
getting settled in, at your, you know, at the apartment there. I will say again, as I
Hmm.
said when we closed, if there's anything at all that you guys need, you have questions, concerns, don't hesitate to reach out. It might not be something that I can personally do, but if there are other professional services that you guys need, you know, I'm more than happy to make
Hmm.
connections or just answer questions, you know. But you know, yeah,
Sounds
I think that probably wraps things up for today, and I'll let you get back to it. And
okay.
I'm glad to hear that you have a light weekend on tap. You know, take a little time, relax, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Hmm. Okay, sounds good. Thanks,
Take
Taylor.
care.
Have a good
Appreciate it.
one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.